This is Goku-san DBZ, and welcome back. This is part one of my PlayStation collection. I've already done others previously, Sega, Nintendo, and Microsoft Xbox. So now it's PlayStation, but because of having a little bit larger, I'm having to break it up into three parts. In part one, this one, I will be doing my PS1 and PS2. Part 2 will be PS3 with the PSP and PS Vita. Part 4 will be PS4 exclusive. Plus, I will have to list off because I got a bunch of digital stuff as well, and I'll list what I have digitally speaking. With that said, let's start some music that I chose from the PlayStation era from Soul Blade, aka which started Soul Calibur series. First, a couple games that I don't actually have cases for still. Blast Radius, which is an okayish like space game, not that great, hasn't aged well. Made by the same people who made actually the original Armored Core games. Next up, we have the original Colony Wars, which is actually disc one. It's a two-disc game. Colony Wars was actually, I think, probably the best space-type shooter game in the PS1 era, in my opinion. Also, I have Colony Wars 3 Red Sun. And yeah, that's actually a pre-owned sticker from, I believe it was Blockbuster, if I'm not mistaken. But I decided to keep it on there for nostalgia factors. Cold Borders 2001. Mega Man Legends 1, which is definitely really good, underrated RPG series. Mega Man Legends 2. Street Skater, which was an okay skateboarding game. A game that was definitely not very good, very glitchy and a lot of issues, but I love the comedic stuff with the commentary and stuff coming with it. Blasto was actually a really funny, like superhero type game in all honesty. Of course, Battle Arena Toshinden, which is actually in the PlayStation Classic collection, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, I have a remix also for the Sega Saturn, but this is just the original. This was one of the very first actually PlayStation games I got. It was actually a launch title. We have the dumbed down, of course, games X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, Tekken 1, which you could tell this is greatest hits because it didn't have the artwork, unlike my Tekken 2 and Tekken 3 does have artwork on the disc, which is awesome. It's sad they don't really do this much for games nowadays. Tekken 3, which has loved the artwork, and I think that is hands down the best design of Yoshimitsu in my opinion. Not a great fighting game, and definitely not a great necessarily Star Wars game, but it's a game I've actually kept throughout the years, strangely enough. A highly underrated fighting game, Destraga, which was, to my knowledge, the very first fighting game to have a story mode in it. Like a 2.5, 3 hour story mode, and this game was 1998, people. It predates every other fighting game with a story mode, to my knowledge. Soul Blade, which of course you hear the music in the background playing of, but I also have a copy of this also in case. The original Bloody Roar, which is an incredible, really good fighting game series. In my opinion, the best of the series. Bloody Roar 2, The New Breed. Time Crisis, a really good shooter. The original Spider-Man, which up until now, the newest Spider-Man game, this was, in my opinion, the best Spider-Man game until now. The original Twisted Metal. Twisted Metal 4. Vigilante 8, which is a really, really good game. Parasite Eve, another great video game in my opinion. Forsaken, known as, of course, The Future is Forsaken, which was actually a great multiplayer shooter type game. Mortal Kombat 3, which I feel this is the best version of actually Mortal Kombat 3 in my opinion. And of course, a lot of people's favorite Mortal Kombat game, Mortal Kombat Trilogy. That's the last without the cases. Well, except this, technically I have the stuff, but I need to get a backup case to put it in. And this is a collection which includes Final Fantasy IV and Chrono Trigger, PlayStation versions, of course. Okay, next are two games that lost the originals, so I ended up buying like special custom replacement cases in the style of like PS2 era, but PS1 games. The original Tin Shoes game, which was of course made from FromSoft, well technically, and with Activision, which that Two Souls game obviously is going to be sort of like the successor to the Tin Shoes series in my opinion. And in a lot of people's opinions, the best of the Castlevania series, Symphony of the Night, which is praised by many people, including Yahtzee, I might add, which praises this game, and Yahtzee is pretty picky what he praises. Okay, next up, we start with Crash Bandicoot 2. In my opinion, and my personal favorite of the Crash series. Unfortunately, this is the only original Crash game I have actually ended up somehow keeping over the years. Next up, Mega Man 8, which is actually, it's one of my favorite of the original Mega Man series. Some people would disagree, but yeah, I still actually really like Mega Man 8, even though the English voice acting is really, really bad in all honesty. But I kind of like the cheesy bad voice acting in all honesty. The original Spyro games, this was unfortunately the only one I've actually kept throughout the years. And that is the second of the Spyro trilogy, which I still need to get Reunite, the remake. Next is a incredible and underrated little game from Capcom, and that is basically it's Street Fighter meets Tetris is the best way to describe it. And it's actually a lot of fun to play, and I think recently Maximilian Dude actually did a part of Ken Legacy of this game. If you get a chance, actually check it out. It's pretty fun. You can get an HD re-release of the game actually on PS3. Fighting Force, a pretty fun actually beat 'em up game from the very beginning of the PS1 lifespan. For me, I actually really enjoy this game, honestly. Even though it's very clunky and stuff today, I still think it's fun. A great anime type fighter game that I actually highly recommend to any fighting game collectors. If you want to get some fighting games for the PS1, this is a game I recommend highly. Gundam Battle Assault 2. Next up is, of course, I already had this in a top 5 list. In my opinion, is one of the best PlayStation exclusives, a great JRPG, The Legend of Dragoon, which is a lot of fun in all honesty. Also, a very interesting and unique game, to say the least, Warhawk. I can't really describe the game, it's so strange and bizarre, you kind of have to experience it for yourself. Next up is a unique game I picked up at a retro game convention I lucked out on. Because of not getting the original case and stuff, I put in a replacement case. This is a really good tactical RPG game. If you like games like Final Fantasy Tactics and stuff, I actually think you'll probably appreciate this game in all honesty. It's pretty good from a tactical standpoint. You definitely have to be good at those type of RPGs to really appreciate a game like this. And it's very highly underrated, but it's also very expensive unless you're good at spotting a good price and good deal on the game. Definitely do your research on games like that. Next up is a great, sadly underrated square soft game. Bushido Blade, incredible fighting game that is very much based in reality at the way it plays. Like, there's no regular health bar or anything. Also, of course, there was a sequel, Bushido Blade 2. Definitely great weapon-based fighting games. If you ever get a chance to play Bushido Blade, take the chance and try it out. Next, we have an interesting anime-type fighting game. And if you look at the art style, it's actually very similar to that of the Tenchi series, strangely enough. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the Tenchi, like, animators or artists may have had something to do with this game. But it's called Evil Zones. Interesting. Next, we have Final Fantasy Anthology, which is a collection of Final Fantasy V and Final Fantasy VI, which are both incredible JRPGs. Next, we have, of course, the infamous Final Fantasy VII. Then, my personal favorite of the series, Final Fantasy VIII. In my opinion, the most underrated Final Fantasy game. Of course, another very highly loved game, Final Fantasy IX. And, of course, there's Vivi. Okay. We just have a little bit more PS1. Next, we have a very cool platformer slash puzzle type game. If you like puzzle type games and platformers, give it a try. It's honestly a really fun game. I actually enjoyed the Oddworld series, and this is my personal favorite of the franchise, Oddworld Abe's Exodus. And you could get this game probably under $20. I got this years back for under $10, but honestly, you can still get this pretty good price because it's highly underrated. And sometimes those are the games to get, are the underrated ones. Next up, we have a not too easy to find fighting game series. Ooh, very unique fighting game, to say the least, from Capcom. It's really fun, though. And that is Rival Schools, which actually has Sakura from the Street Fighter series in. Next, we have, of course, as I said, the music playing in the background from Soul Blade, aka Soul Edge in Japan, which is a great weapon-based fighting game. Next, we have the original Street Fighter Alpha, that began the Alpha franchise, which I feel this is one of the more underrated Street Fighter games. Next, we have arguably pretty much neck and neck of being my favorite Street Fighter game of all time, Street Fighter Alpha 2. Favorite of the Alpha trilogy, which is my favorite Street Fighter series, hands down. Next, we have the beginning. Sadly, I don't have the front, but I do have the back and stuff. But I love, and that is the first of the Street Fighter EX series. Then we have Street Fighter EX plus Alpha or whatever 2, and of course, kind of cool they actually put Ken on the front rather than Ryu or someone. Next, we have Twisted Metal 2, which in my opinion is maybe the best of the Twisted Metal series, hands down. Though that's quite an assumption, some people say Twisted Metal Black. And of course, a lot of people may not know, but yeah, Warcraft 2 was released on PlayStation, Dark Saga, which I've never played World of Warcraft, but I have played Warcraft 2, and I do like this game quite a bit. Even though it's probably inferior to the PC version, still doesn't change the fact I love this game, honestly. It's a lot of fun, great soundtrack, I might add. Last batch of PS1 era, we have a very unusual fighting game, to say the least, made by Midway of all companies, and that is Biofreaks, which Maximilian Dood did a boss rage of this game. And yet, it's a very frustrating game. Next up, we have, of course, the great classic Metal Gear Solid. Then we have, in my opinion, the most underrated game in the Metal Gear series, Metal Gear Solid VR Missions. It is maybe, at least in my top 20 favorite PS1 games of all time. Next we have, of course, Mortal Kombat 4. Even though I'm not the biggest Mortal Kombat fan, I actually own quite a few Mortal Kombat games, strangely enough. Next, we have a somewhat underrated hacking slash survival horror game, and that is Nightmare Creatures, which is an interesting game. Very clunky controls, unfortunately. It's not aged very well. Next, we have the original Resident Evil. Director's Cut, of course. I don't have the original Resident Evil non-Director's Cut. That's a little bit harder to find, and price-wise, it ranges 3 times the price on average, if not 4 times the price of the Director's Cut, which is bonkers in my opinion. Next, we have, in my opinion, the best of the Resident Evil franchise, Resident Evil 2, which of course we have a remake coming soon enough. And I'm actually really looking forward to the Resident Evil 2 remake. Next, we have Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. In my opinion, this was when Resident Evil was in its golden age. Up through Resident Evil Code Veronica, to me, was the end of its greatness. Resident Evil 4 was great, but not as good. Next, we have a very interesting, very overlooked at often, Spawn game. Yep, more people probably know of the Spawn platformer on the Super Nintendo than this, but price-wise, this is dirt cheap. I mean, heck, I found this a few years back, still in mint condition, $5, so needless to say, it's cheap. Next, we have arguably neck and neck with Resident Evil being probably tied for being the second best survival horror series of all time, if not neck and neck for number one. The original Silent Hill. Back when Konami actually gave a crap about their fans. Now we move on to the PS2 era. First up, we have Mega Man X Collection. Even though technically it doesn't include Mega Man X, like 8 and stuff. But this actually it doesn't include Mega Man X 7 or 8. But it does include another special game along with Mega Man X 1 through 6. You could actually get this pretty reasonable price still, like under $20 on PS2. Which is kind of cool. And it's a good game, honestly. I recommend picking this up for collectors. As, of course, given I'm a big Mega Man X fan, it's no surprise I picked this up years back. Next, we have the original Kingdom Hearts. Yep, still the original black, not the greatest hits version case. The original version when it came out. Love Kingdom Hearts to this day. Next, Kingdom Hearts 2, which arguably by many to be the best of the Kingdom Hearts series, though I personally feel Birth by Sleep is the best, but that's my opinion. Next, we have Bloody Roar 3, which is actually, I think, maybe the best selling of the franchise. That or it's Primal Fury, it's one of the two. But strangely enough, Activision was involved in Bloody Roar 3. And by many people, fans of the series, a lot of people consider this be the best of the series. Next we have, and once again, don't ask why I have 2 copies, Chaos Legion, which plays a lot like Devil May Cry, except it's rated T. But it's strangely enough art style and elements in this game, rather than going more the art style direction of Devil May Cry, it goes more the direction of like Final Fantasy and Square, which is kind of unusual. If you look at the design of the main villain of the game, he looks kind of like a knockoff Sephiroth, in my opinion. Next up, we have an incredible PS2 game, Dark Cloud 2. Dragon Ball Z Budokai, the original. Fatal Fury Collection. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot some of the PS2 games, actually, I don't have cases for. First up of those, we have Final Fantasy X, an interesting Yu-Gi-Oh game called The Rose Duelist, which I actually recommend getting this game. It's actually very interesting. Armored Core 2, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, the original Dark Cloud, Phantasy Star Universe, Soul Calibur 2, Virtual Fighter 4, Tekken 4, Genji, a kind of cool samurai game actually, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and may I add, the only Grand Theft Auto game I own, Resident Evil Code Veronica X, Silent Hill 2, Shinobi, and a couple of PS1 games I missed actually. Chrono Cross, which is an indirect sequel to Chrono Trigger, an interesting art style game from Square, and one of the best JRPGs of all time in my opinion, Lunar Silver Star Story, which is an incredibly fun and awesome JRPG game. Eventually I hope to get Lunar 2 Eternal Blue. Next up, we have the Collector's Edition of Final Fantasy XII, which is sadly a dark or black sheep of the family, which I don't understand. Honestly, it's fun, though it replicates more of like an open world type game. It was really the first of its kind in the franchise for the most part. It replicates more of like an MMO type game. It's all real time. There's no random battle encounters, which I think disheartened and kind of outraged a lot of the old school Final Fantasy fans. I think that's why a lot of people overlooked the game, unfortunately. They introduced a lot of people to the series. Of course, another one. A very awesome game. The original Star Wars Battlefront, far better than the redone one. Of course, Street Fighter Anniversary Collection. Next, if you get a chance, if you don't get the 30th Anniversary Collection, which I recommend, pick up the Street Fighter Alpha Anthology Collection. You get Alpha, Alpha 2, Alpha 2 Gold, which is an improved version, Alpha 3, and it even includes a copy of Gem Fighters, which is a really cool, fine game. Then we have the third installment of Street Fighter EX series. King of Fighters Maximum Impact, which I believe was actually the first 3D fine game in the King of Fighters series, which a lot of people probably don't even know about this game, unless you're a hard King of Fighter fan. Next we have King of Fighters 11. Then we have Tekken 5, which by many people consider this to be the best of the Tekken series. The content is insane on Tekken 5. I mean, you get Tekken 5, a brief story mode, The Devil Within, and you have full original arcade versions of Tekken 1 through 3. It's ridiculous. Of course, also the ultimate version of Virtual Fighter 4. Next, we have a very odd final game in the Bloody Roar series, Bloody Roar 4. It's kind of strange. Next, we have the Devil May Cry 5th Anniversary Trilogy from years back, with Devil May Cry 1, 2, and 3 all together, which is awesome. Definitely a fun game series. We have another somewhat interesting, overlooked at game from Square, and that is Drakengard, though technically it became a trilogy, though the third game is very different from the first two. Next we have easily one of the best survival horror game series of all time, Fatal Frame. Next we have Legacy of Kain, which I believe this was actually the final game in the Legacy of Kain series. Then we have Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance, Onimusha 1 and 2, which actually cool samurai hack and slash survival horror games. We have, of course, the premium edition or whatever of Resident Evil 4, which by me is the best game in the franchise. Resident Evil 3. A very odd game, Resident Evil 4 The Room. I mean, not Resident Evil, but Silent Hill 4 The Room. I don't know what's wrong with me. Silent Hill Origins. Twisted Metal Black. And last but not least, we have the Zone of the Enders. And Zone of the Enders Second Runner. And that is it for PS1 and PS2. Stay tuned in the future for part 2 and 3. And I'll see y'all next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel.